Unfortunately, I couldn't find it, but I thought I'd just start the stream anyway. So, I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. And welcome to everybody. This is one of those mornings where it feels like I am struggling just to stay awake. And on that subject, this week, as in the week just gone, I decided to cut out caffeine, and that was a mistake. I needed it. So, when was it? Yeah, last weekend, probably last Sunday, I stopped drinking coffee. Monday, I felt absolutely terrible. Tuesday, I felt terrible. In fact, Monday afternoon. So, normally Mondays I go to jiu-jitsu just down the road, class starting at 5:20. Well, it's just changed to 5:30. Beside the point. Anyway, it was something like 3:30 in the afternoon, and I felt so out of it that I just couldn't think, I couldn't do anything, and I just got off my chair and lay down on the floor here, which is carpet tiles on cement, so it's not exactly soft. And I thought, oh, just rest my eyes for a minute. And then I woke up and I'd missed jiu-jitsu. And I've got like perfectly good couches up here that upstairs, I could have just gone up and lay down on the couch and slept in comfort. But no, I was so out of it that it didn't even cross my mind. It was like the option wasn't even there. You missed a bit. What did you miss? Okay, so good morning to everybody. Good morning to Chip, Austin, Michael, and Amanda is here. Good morning from a sunny 8 degrees Celsius here in Toronto, New South Wales. There is a Toronto in New South Wales? I didn't know that. Michael pulled up in his limo, that's right. Some call it fun. Stephen, Don S is here. Chip is here. Did I say hello to Chip before? Yes, I did. See, I am losing the plot. Russell, Michael, DIY, and David. Sion's here. Sharky, Simon, Cable Tie. Who else? I start losing track of who I've said hello to. Imogen Ann is here, of course. David, Martin, Frank, Downey, California. Downey, California? Is Downey a place, or does that mean that it's like a pillow? Oh, yes. So, yes, Chip, you got two hellos. All right, I have a few things to talk about today. And Peter wants to know what's for lunch. What's for lunch? That's a good question. But first thing is, look what I have right here. And this is a genuine Funway Volume 3 printed. It's in plastic for protection purposes. And this is where my poor memory comes in. This was sent to me by someone without a note. Following on from the conversations that we've been having recently about Funway into electronics. And it was last week and or the week before. Yeah, Celtic Beast says it's John's white whale. Someone in the chat several times said, I have a copy and I'm going to send it to you. And I said, no, I don't want you to give up your own personal copy. I'm happy to go out and find someone that's selling it and buy it. I don't remember who it was that said that. So if you're the person that sent me this, please speak up and say it. I want to know who to give credit to. And whoever it is, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That is so cool to have the actual physical book again. I've had it out of the plastic and had a flip through, looked at some of the projects. Reminded myself of some of the things. It might have been, Imogen suggested that it might have been Alexei but I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember. There were a couple of people who offered. I'm pretty sure Alexi offered to buy one, or Alexi pointed me to the ad that was on eBay for one. But I'm not. But I think there was someone else who said they had a copy and they would just send it to me. So, whoever that is, thank you. And once I find out who it is, I will give credit. There was a return address which had a company name on it, but I'm not going to say who the company name because, yeah, I don't know if that's okay or not. I don't want to reveal things that shouldn't be revealed without the person's permission. And the company name doesn't really help me find who the person was. Henrik says, sorry I've been lazy a bit, still putting together your package, but it will be ready to ship soon. Don't worry, Henrik, I appreciate it. And let me know when you are ready to ship it and I'll send you some money for the postage. So no hurry on it. I appreciate that you're doing this. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be interesting to see, excuse me, whatever it is that you've got in there, the magical mystery package that, if I'm really lucky, it will have some things that I can attempt to assemble on a stream. Yeah. Okay, so things to talk about today. The thing that I put in as the title of the stream is OXRS updates and Sweetsville timeout? Henry? Mad Techie! Oh, thank you, Mad Techie. So, credit for this goes to Mad Techie. Thank you. That is so cool. I really, really appreciate that. So now I have the complete set, Funway Volume 1, 2, and 3 in hard copy form. Peter says, talk about lunchtime. Why do you want me to talk about lunchtime already? It's too early for that. Paul says, one of my favourite early books is Forrest Mims' Engineer's Notebook. Yes. I know of that. I don't own a copy of it. I'm pretty sure that I flipped through, like I read it. I got it from a library or something at some point. I know I've seen it. Like I've held a copy in my hand and gone through it. I don't actually own it though. Yes. Matt Techie says, I left the solder blob on the cover for you. Yeah. Yes, I noticed that. That's really cool. You may not have noticed, but I'll point out where it is. It's just here. You see that little grey patch on there? That is actually solder adhered to the cover. I can't scratch it off because it's under the plastic, and I think it's actually melted in. So the the cover has like a slightly plasticized finish on it, and I think it's yeah, I think the solder is sort of, it's embedded itself into the cover, so it won't just flick off. Simon. Okay, Simon asked, how does one meet you in person? A couple of ways. One way is to hire me to do something and pay me $1 bajillion. But actually, no, I can't really do that at the moment because I am maxed out. I've got more contracting work than I can keep up with right now. I've got many projects running in parallel for different clients, so I am not in a position to take on more work right now. So paying me $1 bajillion is one option. The other is come to the next barbecue. Okay, so if you're in Melbourne, the barbecue, okay. Oh, I read, hang on, why are the two messages retracted? I read Celtic Beast's message before it was retracted, but I don't want to say it because it's been retracted, just in case Celtic reposts it. What was I thinking? What was my train of thought? That's right, barbecue. So, the CCHS Social Night, which is the Connected Community Hackerspace is on the first Saturday evening of the month. So what I'm going to do is make a Superhouse barbecue on the Sunday, the second Sunday of the month. So it's the week after the Connected Community Hackerspace's social night, so that they're not hard up against each other. Have a little bit of yeah. Simon, I'm not going to give the address in here. So the way to do this, how to coordinate this. I need a way of putting the information out there in a semi-public way, but not just like posting it for everybody to see. And, oh, Elix, once again, hello from the heart of Europe. Right, so probably the best thing is to get on Discord. There is a channel now specifically in Discord for the I think it's just called Superlab-Barbecue. And I'll put some information in there. So the address and the timing, but the general plan I'm working to is starting at 12:30 on the second Sunday of the month, which means the next one will be in 3 weeks, something like that. I'd have to look up a calendar. Oh, Don says to create a meetup group. Sion says too late, just post the info on Twitter and Facebook. Go for it. No, Peter says, meeting John is easy. Step 1, become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Step 2, issue challenge to John. Step 3, question. Step 4, profit. No, you don't need to become a black belt. This is the thing. Get the hardest belt of all. Become a white belt. And that's all it takes to beat me. So, yeah, the hardest belt to get is the first day walking in the door at the gym, because almost nobody does it. Let's start the business over. Henrik, are you speaking French? Go on, let's start the business now. Okay, for some reason I cannot access Discord. Oh. Alrighty, it's probably a good time to put the link in anyway. I'm just going to pull it up so I can drop it into, maybe I need to regenerate the invitation or something. Yeah, Tassie Bob says, I think I've got 2 or 3 black belts and maybe a brown one. No white belts though. What am I wearing? I am actually wearing a black belt right now, which is a lie. It's a dirty, dirty lie. A bit of Google Translate helps. Yes, okay. All right, here we go. I'm going to Google Translate Henrik's comment and, traducción. Where is it? Translate. I'm going to get myself back on track any second now. Or we're not going anywhere with this. Okay. Stolen belt, yes. Stolen belt. Peter, my hovercraft is full of eels. Is that a Basil Fawlty thing? I can't remember where that's from. I think it might be, I think it might be a John Cleese thing. I just don't remember where it's from. My hovercraft is full of eels. Okay, barbecue. So, Henrik says, would you like the letter with your package to be in French? Yes, please. Let's do that, just for the challenge. Yes, okay, Monty Python, so I was on the right track at least. Now, Simon, getting back to this Discord thing and the barbecue. I'll wrap this up so I can move on because I've got a whole list of things to cover today. Meetup group. Maybe I should do a meetup group, except that they charge for that these days. Meetup used to be a good way of setting up these sorts of events, but I am pretty sure that they changed to a payment-based system. So I'd have to take out a paid account on Meetup in order to create it. So that leaves us at the moment with Discord as the place to talk about it. I don't know, I'm going backwards and forwards on this. I could be public about it because Discord in some ways is public. What's on Discord is not searchable by Google as far as I know. So it's got that sort of one step removed of not just being out there for everybody to see, but anyone can join because the invitations are open to my Discord server, which means anyone could just join it, get all the details and get the address. But it just feels like if I did something like put all of the information in a blog post, including the address and everything else, it would just be too much. So maybe what I should do is, oh, Andrew says, can you do an invite room in Discord so your other mods need to approve? Yeah, that could be done. But in the meantime, the Superlab Barbecue channel in Discord is open to all members. So you have to join Discord and then go into, basically you follow the instructions. You have to go to the rules channel and you have to click like on the rules. And once you've done that, you automatically get access to all of the different sections of the Discord. So right now, well, maybe what I could do is I could do something like put up a blog post with all the general information about it, like the timing and the description of what it's about, but not have the actual address and have a thing like email me for the address. So yes, Simon. So Simon says, if I send you my email address to info, can you send me address? Yeah, in fact, what I'll do is, info is not the best one. I don't check that email account very often. Try, if the funny thing is that because we've got automatic closed captions now, if I say my email address, is it going to end up as closed captions? Okay, so the best way is to use my personal email address, which is John, Jon, very short and simple, at oxer.com.au. So if you can, Simon, if you can email me at that address, I will send you the physical address of where the next barbecue is going to be. Yeah, it's kind of a messy process. Maybe Meetup is the best way to do it. Thanks for that suggestion. Who was it that said Meetup? Someone said Meetup. Yep. Sorry, I got distracted by Peter talking about his lunch being in danger from Tassie Bob. Yeah. Oh, Celtic Beast says, find John's tour video. Note the coffee roaster next door. Yeah, so you find... yep. Also, Chip, thanks. Got it. So the coffee roaster next door. Yeah, so if someone was really wanting to track me down, they could. It's not really that hard. In fact, I think the factory address is set as the return address on every package I ship from for Superhouse and Freetronics. It has been recently anyway. Although maybe it's still the PO box. I can't remember. Anyway, enough of this subject. Summary is barbecue second Sunday of the month, 12:30 here at the factory. Okay, where am I? Looking at my little post-it note of things. So, barbecue. Barbecue wasn't even on my list. How did I end up talking about that? I don't know. Okay. I do want to have a quick look at some OXRS things. Last night I had a look at some of the repos with some of the updated firmware and those sorts of things, but I haven't installed things myself. So it's mostly going to be about mostly just going to be about the things they do. So I'm wondering if I should put that off until a bit later, because there are a couple of other things that are interesting subjects as well. Let's put that off. Okay. Cable Tie says, good reason to buy some stuff. You get a free barbecue address included. Yeah, what I should do is get it, maybe like put a little note and stick it in each of the orders, or at least each of the orders that ships to somewhere in Melbourne. It's a bit hard otherwise. And as someone suggested recently, we need to set up like a live video chat at the barbecue, so that, like a multi-way thing, you know, using Jitsi or Whereby or one of these services, so that there can be a whole bunch of people in video chat live, and one of the video chat participants can be a laptop or something here at the barbecue, so that it's, you know, one of the participants is here. Now, what was it? So Funway 3, I talked about, thanks to Mad Techie. Okay, here's one to throw at you. Selection of 3D printers. This is possibly going to open up some holy wars. I don't know, it might, but I just recently, my friend Plasma Steve, I'm just pulling something up here, let's see, Bamboo, I'm just bringing up some things, Bamboo 3D printer. Okay, my friend Plasma Steve said that he wants to get a 3D printer, and he asked for some advice, because I've got a few 3D printers and he's been impressed by the quality of what comes out of the Prusa that I've got up there, which I've had for a few years now. So I had a quick chat to him about his use case and the dimensions that he wants to make, the type of materials that he wants to print with, and the level of detail required and those sorts of things. And his needs are reasonably basic, pretty straightforward, but he wants to get a nice finish on things. And so what I'm thinking of doing is going back to him with 3 recommendations, and maybe other people have different opinions on this, but I'll just give my overview of how I think about this problem. This is also going to depend on things like budget. So you don't necessarily want to spend multiple thousands of dollars on something that's just like oh yeah, that's interesting, but I don't really care about it that much. But you don't want to buy a $300 3D printer if you're wanting something that is going to just work and give you really good quality results, etc. So you have to find that that sweet spot. So I can see comments already about the Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon. Yeah, so that is one of the things that is on my list. So this is what I was thinking of suggesting, and I want your opinions on it. I was thinking of pitching 3 options at different price points and different levels of sophistication, and the pros and cons of each. At the base level, you would have something like a Creality printer. So quite cheap, and it takes a bit of fiddling, doesn't have all of the nice modern high-tech conveniences. Sort of middle of the road would be something like a Prusa i4, and is it what do they call it? Mark IV, i3 Mark IV, something like that. I've got what did they even call it? Prusa Mark IV. And then at the higher price point, something like a Bamboo Labs printer. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to pull up some things on, where are we? X1 carbon. And I don't know if these are really the best at the, sorry, I'm clicking through things while I, Ender 3S1, yeah, I don't know. I haven't even looked into the different, here we go, I'm going to arrange them in order. Accept, and screen share. All right, so the three sort of price points was some model, not necessarily this one, but something like an Ender 3 or equivalent as a more entry level sort of thing. Something like a, yeah, okay, I'll take all your cookies. And something like a Prusa Mark IV as the mid price point, and something like an X1 as the higher price point, which is an amazing printer, does lots of stuff, but how much do they cost in Australia? It's like $2,500, something like that. So at that sort of price point, that is not an impulse buy. That is a decision of I already know what I want, and I want something good, and I'm probably going to be making money by using this printer. So that's the probably a bit out of the range of most people. Prusa, so this is $1,000 US, 1,100 US dollars. What's it? Lead time 5 to 6 weeks. Yeah, so they're back into fulfillment hell at the moment. And black, orange, black. Does it make any difference to the availability? Nope. Lead time 5 to 6 weeks. Okay, Bamboo versus JLC PCB prefab. Okay, so Some Call It Fun has raised an interesting question, which is, do you buy something like a printer and do it locally, or do you use something like JLC's service for 3D printing? And yeah, that is a valid question. I could go down a whole rabbit hole here about optimizing processes and localizing loops to reduce cycle times, but in this particular case, for Steve's use case, I think he just wants it locally so that he can. And also the other thing to keep in mind with Steve is that 3D design, like the CAD side of it, no problem at all. His actual work is fabrication. Like he's spent his lifetime doing CNC machining and metal fabrication and those sorts of things. So in terms of things like mechanical drawings and those sorts of things, he's way ahead of me, and doing the like design for manufacture for metal fabrication side of things. He's the expert. So in terms of designing the objects and that sort of thing, no problem at all. He can take care of all of that. He's got all the software and stuff. So it's then what he wants to be able to do is produce plastic parts out of a 3D printer, whereas most of his time, like all of his day job, is fabricating parts out of steel or aluminium. So yeah, it's just the printer side of it that is the issue. Yes. So now I'm going to go back and have a quick look, because while I've been doing that little introductory setting the scene thing, I want to see what you've all been seeing. Where is... Imogen said, why did I mispronounce your name? I'm sorry. Sauce bot, barbecue bot for the barbecue participant. Yeah, okay. I want to build a sauce bot. And the other thing I want to do is build a pancake bot. I think I talked about this on, might have talked about this last live stream. Yeah, I want to make something like one of these, a pancake bot. But so the sauce bot that was here for the last barbecue belongs to the Connected Community Hackerspace. And Andrew N, who is sometimes in the chat here. What's his handle in the chat? I'm trying to remember. I've gone blank on it. I can't match the chat name to the real life name. The real life name is Andrew. Is the custodian of the bot, of the source bot, and he came along to the. Oh yes, Imogen said his handle involves pancakes. Yes, Pancake Legend or something like that, I think. Yeah, so he, yeah, if he comes along to the barbecue and he brings a sauce bot, that's fantastic. But I can't put it on Andrew to turn up to every single barbecue. And I would love to have a sauce bot of my own. So I'm going to talk to him about building a sauce bot. And then we can always have one here. Okay, so quick chat. A quick chat about printers again. Clinton said, had a Prusa, the easiest to use and learn with least hassles. Right, so the Prusa, my primary printer, that one back there, is a Mark III S Plus. It started off, what did I get it as? I think it started off as a Mark III, and then I got the upgrade kit to the Mark III S, and then I got another upgrade kit, so I think technically it's a Mark III S Plus with a couple of minor mods. But it's not the Mark IV, which is the new one that just came out. And this one here is the Mark IV, which seems to be improved in many, many ways. So by the time you do a conversion on this and add shipping, etc., it's probably about 1,600-ish Australian dollars to get one of these. And this, I saw someone earlier, Lictum said 2,219 Australian dollars with the AMS. What's the AMS? Is that the Automatic Material Selector? Is that what it stands for? I'm just making stuff up. I don't know. Multi-materials, colors. Ah, yeah, there we go. Automatic Material System. Not selector, system. So 2219. That is an amazing looking printer. I would really, really like to have one of these. Many advantages to it. I think that's a Core XY design, isn't it? So it's not moving the bed around, which is a large part of the mass, and that allows it to go much faster. Alright, so let's start from the bottom end. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this. This is, yeah, AMS is the 4-color reel holder changer. Thanks, Dion. Yeah, okay, so Nath Dev AU, my guess is your name is Nathan. The problem with the Ender 3 is the amount of tweaking you need to do to get it working correctly requires a fairly in-depth knowledge of 3D printing and troubleshooting. Yeah, so this is basically my summary. How I'm going to give this information back to Plasma Steve. The option at the low end is something like an Ender 3, which is going to be the cheapest way to do it, but it has the highest amount of hand-holding required. And this is excluding the really, really cheap ones. I'm talking about something that is actually a decent cheap printer, something like the Ender 3. buy now. Let's see how much these are. 389. That my guess is that'll be once again US dollars. I haven't looked for Australian suppliers or anything yet. There'll be some shipping on that. This item, oh yeah, you can add a laser module. Interesting. Filament, nah, stuff's a filament. Get it locally. Don't include the laser module. So 389 bucks plus some shipping. It's going to be $600-ish probably. And it will be a bit of stuffing around. So there'll be some fiddling to get bed adhesion working and tuning and all of that sort of thing. So if you already had some experience with 3D printing and you wanted a printer that was cheap, that was just going to be like an add-on to your existing capabilities, and you were prepared to deal with the issues and things that come up, something like this is probably a good way to go. And then, ooh, that's interesting, Amanda. I'll get to that. I'll get to your comment in just a second. And then stepping up to something like the Prusa gives you a lot more of the press the button and go sort of experience. Not perfectly. I've never used a Bamboo printer, but I've heard that they really are that press the button and go experience. With the Prusa, there's typically some cleaning required on the bed, like peeling off the little bit that it puts along the front as its priming extrusion, and yeah, there can be a little bit of setup. Although with the Mark IV, because it's got the sensor for the actual depth probe is different. It doesn't use the inductive sensor and require you to set the Z distance, like the spacing on the first layer. It's fully automatic now. You can slap any sheet in there, any build plate, and they can be different thicknesses or whatever, and it figures it out. It maps it all, and it'll give you a perfect first layer every time. So that's the sales pitch at least. So for someone that doesn't want any fuss, something like this is a good way to go. But it doesn't have the material changer and all of those sorts of things. Now, the Bamboos, these are the ones that have been getting all of the hype recently. Everybody loves the Bamboo printers. And yeah, the word is that they just work and they produce really good results. They're really fast. And they've got things like the multi-material stuff involved. So they are kind of like before you go to the proper professional 3D printers where you're paying $20 or $30 or $50,000 for a 3D printer, which is where things start getting really good and really serious. Before you get to that level, this is pretty much the sweet spot of producing high quality prints very quickly with no fuss. So, yes. Oh yeah, so Imi pointed out, talking about resin printing, I should have prefaced this by saying there are many different printing methods, and for the purposes of what Plasma Steve is talking about, I'm just going to recommend FDM only. So just plastic extrusion and nothing else. For different purposes, resin printers could be really useful. Like if you're doing high detail, small parts or different types of parts, resin printers have their advantages. But for Plasma Steve, I'm just going to recommend FDM options. Okay. So, some interesting information. So, Rob V says the Creality Ender S3, 3S1 Pro is 599 Australian dollars from Creality AU. All right, so say $600 for this one. Say $1,500, $1,600 for this one. That's a big price jump. And then we've got the Bamboo Lab, which is in the multi-thousands region. But coming back to Amanda's comment. So Amanda said the Bamboo Lab P1P is $1,069 Australian. All right, P1P. This is where my limited knowledge of the bamboo range comes in, because I don't know how the different models relate to each other. So the P1P seems to be significantly cheaper than the X1, but in order to achieve that price, my guess is they've had to not include some things. So probably not the it doesn't have the multi-material thing. Colors, 16 multi-color capability. Okay, so you can add the AMS to it. It supports the AMS. But what are you giving up? Advanced upgrades available. So the difference between the X1 and the Tessie Bob says FDM filament something something. Excuse me. Fused deposition. FDM. What is it? Modeling or manufacturing? FDM. Fused deposition. Yeah, fused deposition modeling is what FDM stands for. So that's the classic hot glue gun, squirty squirty, the plastic approach. Now, so maybe the Bamboo Lab P1P is would be a good replacement for this. So instead of going for something like a Prusa Mark IV as the mid-range option, which is, I keep saying this number, but I'm guessing around $1,600 Australian landed, versus a bit over $1,000 for this one, that could be a very good option. So maybe what I should do is suggest the P1P. Interesting. So Matt says, hey Matt, we bought an Ender and a Prusa at the same time, and the Prusa has outlasted the Ender by orders of magnitude, constantly fixing the Ender, but the Prusa has been almost completely hassle-free. Yeah, so I happen to have a little bit of background information on what Matt is talking about there, which is, so Matt has been printing, he runs his printers constantly, like for weeks, just printing things over and over again, printing hundreds of the same thing over and over again. So yeah, he really thrashes them in terms of being like it's essentially like a production environment. And yeah, so that's a good way to get some experience with what they are like on an ongoing basis, like whether you need to keep constantly retuning them, and whether they will just run consistently for hundreds of parts, hundreds of prints, or thousands of prints. Right. Oh, Trady says g'day. Okay, good. So Sion just confirmed something. Some Call It Fun asked the question, which is it's a very valid worry. Does Bamboo require purchase of supplies exclusively from them, like HP printers? Sion said, nope, can use any filament. And I'm pretty sure Sion has an X1, if I remember correctly. And I'm pretty sure it was from Sion talking about this on one of his streams that I first became aware of the Bamboo printers at all. I hadn't even heard of them until Sion mentioned them and how good they are. Okay, so Chris says, I wouldn't really recommend the Flash Forge as it is hard to set up and the Wi-Fi is quite flaky. Good price, mind you. Okay. So Brett says the Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon is $1,839 without the AMS and $2,219 with the AMS. And the AMS is that multi-material thing that you can see up the top here. Which for some purposes might be very, very useful. For many people, they just won't care about that at all. They'll only want a single color, so there's no benefit to that. So just having a quick look at that, the difference in price is basically $400. So it's an extra $400 to have the support of the multi-material thing, which can be, which does have uses. You don't actually need to be doing multicolor prints for this to be worthwhile. If you're in a production environment, you can do things like just load the same color into all of these and have spare filament. So if one reel runs out, the printer can switch to the next reel of the same color. But I'm assuming you can do that. You can definitely do that on the Prusa with the multi-material support on Prusa. And I guess the Bamboo would do that one as well. And it's also useful if you're doing only single color parts, but different colors. Like one day you might want to print something in blue, another day you want to print something in red. You can just select which color you want. You don't have to load and unload filament manually because the printer takes care of it all. Tassie Bob says, my FlashForge doesn't have Wi-Fi, but my experience was basically plug it in, level, load filament, and it's just worked since. I don't do high volume though, maybe 3 spools so far. Yeah, cool. All right, well, it's good to hear that that's been working well. Yeah, this just shows that there is some variability in the experiences that people have, and it could be variability in the assembly of the printers. Maybe it sounds like maybe Tassie Bob got one that was all well assembled, and other people may not. I don't know. Oh, Martin says, just started experimenting using 3D printer to create timber router templates. Yeah, that's cool. That's an interesting use for them. Dev AU says, the Prusa MMU2 has not been a great experience for me. I've tried setting it up multiple times and it never worked correctly. Yeah, I feel that pain. In fact, I think I even did a video. No, what did I do? I remember posting something about it when I was trying to get my MMU2 working, and it was just horrible. I gave up on it. It's sitting in a box in storage somewhere up on the mezzanine now. But, Paul says, Prusa kit is $799. Okay. That's an interesting price point as well. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if my overall thesis is correct here, that it's worth looking at 3 price points for cheap, but requires lots of hand holding, mid-range, it should work out of the box, but may not have all of the modern features, or more expensive and should be spot on all the time. It's an appliance, not something that you're constantly fiddling with. That's kind of what I'm going to go back to Plasma Steve with. So I think yes. Sorry, just glancing down through chats. So the X1 has some pretty cool stuff on it. So 7 micrometer LiDAR resolution, dual auto bed leveling. Now the LiDAR stuff is interesting. This is a different type of leveling technology, and I've never experienced this. I don't know how good it is. I think that from what I've seen Sion talk about, it is good, but I can't speak from experience. I was just flicking through. Okay, I was just scrolling down this page. I went past this text, and you know when you sort of half read something as you're flicking past it and you misread it? I flicked past this, and I read this as no more bloodstains. Yeah, no more bloodshed during support removal. I think it was because the words sort of just merged together, and and I read it as no more bloodstains. No more blood on your prints or on your printers. Okay, Cable Tie says, I know 3 different people with Bamboo X1s and they all absolutely love them. Yeah, I think this is the one to lust after. Oh yeah, so LiDAR, the bed leveling. I'm not going to go down this. This is a whole rabbit hole in itself. But bed leveling techniques and technologies, it can be done manually, which is the original way it was done. So let's see if it's in range. No, you can't see it. But on a shelf above this, up there, is one of the very early MakerBot cupcakes, and that was totally manual. Like, the build platform was about that big, so leveling was not a big deal, but that was totally manual. Like, you would move the nozzle to each corner and adjust the screws and things to get the build platform at the right angle, and then just leave it like that. And it didn't have any Z-axis sensor or anything, so you'd have to set the position on every single print for the height of it before you begin. And then there are switch-based systems where it probes. There are the inductive sensor types, like used on the Prusa, where it has a sensor attached to the head and it lowers it until it detects that it's a certain distance away from the material. There are accelerometer-based systems where there's an accelerometer attached to the nozzle and it crashes the nozzle. Oh, that's overstating it. It touches the nozzle onto the bed and it uses the accelerometer to detect that little tap. So it taps the bed at different places and sets the level. And with the Bamboo, it uses LiDAR, which is like radar but with light. So there is a structured light projector up inside the top, and what it does is project dots or a light pattern onto the surface, and then it uses a camera to analyze the dots and builds a 3D map totally optically. So that is pretty freaking cool to have that in a 3D printer. Yeah. Michael says bloodstains come from a different type of printer. Yeah. Oh, Mad Techie, that's a good point. It says, I think Xeon had an issue with his and they sent a replacement part very quickly, so great support too. Yeah. Things will always go wrong. It doesn't matter how good the company is, it is always possible to receive something that fails or is broken or whatever. That's not, unless it's a systemic problem, that's not a sign of a bad company or a bad product necessarily, because these things happen. What's a sign of a good company is when it happens and they deal with it quickly and without giving you a hard time about it. So good customer service, good support is important. And it's, from what I've heard, Bamboo is very good at that. Yeah, so Cable Tie says, perhaps OXRS updates this time. Yes, that's the next thing. I just wanted to get some feedback on this. I'll wrap up this subject now. Where are we at? Nearly 11 o'clock. Okay, so I am now a little bit conflicted because I don't know whether I should recommend that he get something like a Prusa Mark IV or a Bamboo, not that one, I wanted 3D printers, or a P1P. So if a P1P is the price that was just mentioned in the chat, that means that it is cheaper than a Prusa Mark IV, and it's possibly better. Almost certainly faster, because it's a Core XY design instead of a bed slinger. It is a really, really interesting looking printer. 15 minutes right out of the box, etc. Upgrade to multicolor. Yep. So, how what do people think about me recommending the P1P as a starting printer for Plasma Steve? It seems to be that sort of right, decent price for good quality. But the one thing that I still don't know is what are you giving up compared to the X1? Yeah, Cable Tie says P1P looks like a great compromise. But what are the compromises? What do you not get? Bamboo P1P versus X1. Let's see. What does CNET? Both are like indignity, one twice the price of the other. Yeah, what are you getting for your twice the price? Unreliable Wi-Fi. Oh, Steve doesn't care about that. Customizable case extremely fast, fully enclosed hardened nozzle. Yeah, don't like over-engineered hot end, wasteful when using the AMS. LCD is not up to the job. Okay. How does it do its bed leveling? Print bed type. Textured PEI sheet versus bamboo flexible cool plate. All right, so the sheet is different. The it's touch point. Okay, so that'll be a major part of the difference. So the bed leveling, LiDAR in the X1 versus touch point. So this will be using an I don't know what they mean by touch point, but it could be the accelerometer type thing where it physically touches the bed, which takes longer. It's probably not as accurate. So that'll be a large part of the cost savings because the LiDAR would be a significant expense for their manufacturing. Yep, thanks Nathan. That's confirmed. So filtration system. Filtration system? What? Carbon filter. Okay, so it's got its own filtration. That's cool. All right, so the P1P doesn't have filtration. App enabled, yes, yes, yes. And the inclusion of the multi-material thing. So there's a slight difference in print bed temperature. The speed is the same. The print volume is the same. Yeah, I like that. I think that the price difference, for Steve's purposes, I don't think he's going to care about the extras that the X1 Carbon gives. Oh, and now I know why it's called the X1 Carbon. It's because it's got a carbon filter. It's not because it's made, is it made of carbon fiber? Some part of it? I don't know. Carbon filter. So the LiDAR versus touch, I don't think he'll care about, and I think most people wouldn't care about. Carbon filter, having a filter built into it is good, but not essential, and everything else looks good. 500 millimeters a second print speed is ridiculous. Yeah, there was a video I saw a couple of days ago of someone who did a benchy. I can't remember the numbers, but I think it was a Core XY printer that was significantly modified. They were running high voltage on the stepper motors, and they were getting, I think it was around 2,000 millimeters a second of print speed, and they printed a benchy in like 2 minutes, and it looked like crap. But the print head was a blur. You just could not see it. As the printer was moving, you just see the print head going. It was ridiculous. Right. Okay. Oh, interesting question. Cable Tie says, I wonder how much the LiDAR contributes to the flawless prints every time. Yeah. Oh, you're right, Michael. Michael says X1 Carbon is a Lenovo laptop model. That's right, it is too. A very popular laptop among hackers because it's like I think it's a very small, it's like a sub notebook size, isn't it? Okay. I think the more I think about this, the more I think I'm just going to go back to Plasma Steve with one recommendation, which is the Bamboo Lab P1P. For just knowing the sort, he won't want to go to a multi-$1,000 printer because it's just not justified in his situation. Yes, the X1 would be awesome, but that would be like buying a Ferrari to go down to the local shops. And yeah, he wants something that's going to take him to the shops. And so he doesn't want a project car where you're constantly tinkering with it and you can't drive it when you need it. He doesn't want to be buying a race car. He wants a car that'll get him to the local shops when he needs it every time. And I think something like the Bamboo Lab P1P is probably that sweet spot. Good price point, and it should do good print quality and yeah, and do the things that he needs. Tradie Trev says he wants a Toyota Corolla. Yeah. The thing that you get in, turn the key, and it works. Yes. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Where am I up to? Where am I up to? Yeah, so thanks everybody for your comments on that and helping talk through. Mad Techie, not an RX-8. And Celtic Beast, Datsun 180B. 180B. 120Y? Peter says, time to update the router firmware. Be back soon. Yeah, maybe I should be updating my router firmware on while I've got the stream going. Let's not do that. There hasn't... I've been looking recently on my Unify console, and it hasn't shown any firmware updates for my routers or anything for quite a while. So, yes, I don't know. Michael says, it's called a 120Y because everyone went, oh Datsun, why? Okay, so, subjects. Now, Cable Tie was saying OXRS. Yes. All right. Oh, Peter says, new Unify update coming soon, dropping layer 2 VPN and VPN for OpenVPN. Tassie Bob, if it were an RX-8, the filament consumption would be ferocious. Yes, and you would also have to inject oil along with the filament. Oh, Peter says, what? I like the bit of hair sticking out over... That's like a bit of beard that's got out of control. Oh, you're criticizing my personal grooming. Chip says it would ingest seals. Yes. Yeah. You need to regularly throw an apex seal in with the filament. Okay, OXRS. Let's have a quick look at this. I'm going to leave those other tabs open and go to oxrs.io. The place to be, where all the cool firmware happens. And cool hardware too. So, OXRS. There is... Oh, that picture is so old. Needs to be replaced. So, let's have a look at firmware. So there are some interesting things in here. And for the people who have been working on this actively that are in the chat, if you want to direct me to anything in particular, please do so. Because a whole lot of stuff has happened that I'm not even aware of. So I'm really just poking around in here and having a look at what's happening. Now, one thing that Austin has mentioned when I was talking about the Wi-Fi downlights last week before, whenever it was, Austin pointed out, oh, and it could run OXRS. And I think what Austin was talking about was this. So I have never actually used this firmware, there is the firmware that we've seen previously, things like state monitor, state controller, state I/O. So, just for some context to show where all of this is coming from, the state monitor firmware is typically what is run on the light switch controller and security sensors, and allows you to have light switches. There's a whole lot of configuration stuff there. If we go back to here, the light switch controller in this particular thing, can we see it better there? Yeah, so we've got the rack 32 here. So there's an ESP32 in this case, connected by I2C to the I/O board, which has connections that can come in from light switches and other types of input devices around the house, so that when you press a button on a light switch, it's detected here, and the rack 32 can communicate that over Ethernet or Wi-Fi and publish to MQTT or whatever. So the firmware that runs on this to take care of all of this, Tassie, I saw that comment. I will get back to that, but I don't want to disappoint Cable Tie by never actually getting to the OXRS stuff, so I'm going to do this now. And then I will come back to that subject if I have time. So the firmware that runs on this to make this a light switch controller is something like State Monitor ESP32. Thank you, Ben. And Moyne, and everybody else that has been working on this. So this is the firmware that you would put on that, typically on that rack mount device. But then then the evolution from that was state controller using the same sort of device as an output driver for doing things like controlling relays or whatever, many different things. So you can use a relay driver shield to control outputs and then control lights around the house. Very similar hardware, potentially identical hardware, and different firmware. And then there is state I/O, which combines it, and so this takes the state monitor, which is the input firmware, and the state controller, which is the output firmware, and it merges it into one. So what you can then do is say some of my ports on this device are from my light switches, and some of them are outputs that control the lights. And it gives you a single device method of supporting light switches and lighting outputs. Okay, so the first three we've got through brings us to this one, which is digital I/O. This is the bit where, I mean, all of what I was just going to say, this is where it gets interesting. No, this is where it becomes new to me. So following on from those other three, we've got digital I/O, ESP32, ESP8266, and it is, so according to this description, it says similar to the state I/O ESP32, so that state monitor and state controller. This is that it's using the I/O pins directly. So with the first versions, with those big rack mount devices, in order to get the maximum number of I/O channels, they use I/O expanders. So it's communicating using I2C to the I/O expander, and then you can plug in many, many light switches and different things. It doesn't use the I/O pins directly from the ESP. This version uses the I/O pins directly, which means you do not need the I/O expander. Now the trade-off, of course, is you only have a few I/O pins, so it's reduced in terms of the capacity to connect things to it, but it's simpler. So what this is, or what this allows you to do, is use this firmware in a context similar to what you would use Tasmoda for. You could put this onto an ESP8266, which might be in a light globe, or it could be, well, you know, all those sorts of things. It could be in a smart light socket or light switch or whatever, and it runs directly on the ESP, and communicates directly via I/O pins rather than through an I/O expander. So in a situation where you are trying to connect an endpoint device like a Sonoff or whatever, this could be the firmware that you use. I have never used this, but I'm pretty sure this is what this is what Austin was referring to when he said you could just run the OXRS firmware on those lights. So yes, Tassie Bob, that subject again. I will get back to that. So possible use cases. Runs on an off-the-shelf ESP dev board without any additional peripherals. Supports the standard OXRS ecosystem, so it can be used for bench testing to get familiar with the API without the need to have a RAC32 on hand. Supports all these things, so push button, switches, encoder, relay driver, and because of the now where are we? This part here, it could be important. Now, one of the cool things about the way OXRS works is the management console, which ultimately will be something similar to the Unify management console, but even in its current form, it provides you with a way to have a local web console that you can connect to a target device, and then you can read from its configuration, you can send configuration to it, etc., through the web-based GUI. And so what this allows you to do is to have devices that you can manage in that exact same way that is compatible with the existing devices, like the light switch controller. So you configure the light switch controller through the OXRS GUI. With this, you can configure the endpoints, like your lights, through the OXRS GUI. So that, to me, is the really interesting thing about this, which I like, and will become more and more powerful as time goes on and as that UI is further developed. Okay, so there's an explanation here. Configuration payloads are wrapped in an extra JSON object containing the GPIO pin and type. So this is just defining how it talks to the user interface, the UI, in order to receive its... So most of the time you don't care about this. If all you want to do is install it and use it, you can do that. This is explaining how the configuration happens kind of under the hood, how it sends its configuration to it. Okay, download the latest binary of the firmware. I'm just going to go to the downloads thing. What have we got builds for? So we've got builds for ESP32 Wi-Fi, ESP8266 Wi-Fi, and LilyGo Ethernet. Yeah, interesting. Right. Some comments. So Trady says, I'm using an old school method where if the electronic controller dies, the lights still electrically function. It uses CT Modbus to measure the load and relays. Very cool. I'm going to have to get onto GitHub to give my input and get my system going with OXRS. That'd be interesting. This is opening up... Where am I going with this thought process? I find it interesting to integrate different things together. Right from the start, that's really been the sort of thing that I've spent a lot of time on. It's glue. Not building complete things from scratch necessarily, but building little bits of glue that tie things together. And having your system using Modbus and have that integrated in some way so that it can be managed by or controlled by, at least, not necessarily managed by in terms of configuration, the OXRS system, that could be very, very useful. And doing that could open the way for other people with Modbus to be able to integrate as well. Yes. What else do we have? Touch panel, security monitor. I will just click down through. I'll go through these reasonably briefly, I think, because the touch panel is the one where there could be something that's worth going over. Security monitor ESP32. Okay, so similar to light switch sensing, but in this case it uses security sensors and end-of-line resistant things that I won't get into right now. So that's firmware for managing that. And where is hardware? Hardware. Where is the matching hardware? Controllers, input devices. Here we go, modular security. So this is Austin's board for interfacing with security sensors. And so it's got MCP 23017s and connectors. This is RJ45, I think. I'm pretty sure it is. Yep. And the idea is that you can put this into a rack mount case and use the, back down to firmware, where was firmware? Security monitor firmware to be able to detect events on security sensors. And there's something here that I really, really like, and I wish that I had done it on my boards, but I wasn't clever enough to think of this, is the board ends halfway through the screw mount, which means that you can butt these modules up side by side and put a screw in between them to hold them down. And it means that you can mix and match different modules. I really, really like that. I'm not about to do a big revision on my own boards, but I really think next time I do a revision, I'm probably going to pull the edges in and try to match this design, because what Austin's done here is very clever and it makes it so much more flexible, because what you could do is have a single rack, like a 1U rack enclosure with a combination of devices. You could have one module for your light switches, one module for security sensors like this one, and then you could have another module that might be a smoke detector connection module, and then another module which could be outputs. So you could do 4 different functions with different modules all in a single rack enclosure. And you could choose to mix and match so that you'd have the right number of input and output devices based on your needs. Very clever. Very cool idea. So, firmware, where was I? Security monitor. Okay, so smoke detector. Same sort of thing. It's just a variant, so it's monitoring smoke detectors. And I think the issue with smoke detectors is that you need to both detect events from them and you need to be able to control them. So it's kind of a special case, which is why it's broken out like this into its own firmware. And it, so Ben did this one, and who I haven't seen in the chat today, but he is one of the brains behind all of this cool firmware. So designed to work with the Clipsal FireTech smoke alarms, fitted with the Clipsal FireTech mounting relay base. I'm going to open that in a new tab just to see what that is. Alright, so that's the mounting base, which has some extra interface stuff in it, I guess, to allow it to be connected. Helps to integrate Clipsal smoke alarms with devices like lights and sirens. This functionality is offered through a changeover voltage-free contact and remote test/hush through momentary push buttons. Yeah, so test and hush. That is the control output. Go back from there for now, back to here. So if you look at the pins on here, you can see there is a mix. There are 2 outputs. There's an input, 2 outputs, input, output, output, input. And a thing missing in the middle. So what that allows you to do is have, I think, are these separate, test and hush? I have a feeling they may be. Where's the command? Interlock index, interlocking. Where's the config for the outputs? Press switch toggle. Okay, I'm just looking, yeah. All right, I'm not going to waste more of your time while I do that. So, the point being that what you can do is use this firmware to connect your smoke detectors back to your home automation system, and then 3 things can happen. You can detect when the smoke detector is triggered. So when it detects smoke, obviously, you want to know about that and have the home automation system react appropriately, doing whatever it is that you want it to do. Obviously, sirens, notification is #1 thing, but it opens up other possibilities like automatically turning on all the lights in the house, unlocking all the doors, you know, doing those sorts of things whenever the smoke detector is triggered. So you need to be able to detect the events coming from the smoke detector. You also want to be able to send a test signal to it. So basically, you tell everybody, cover your ears, we're going to test the smoke detectors, send a command and trigger the smoke detector to make sure that it's functioning correctly. And you also want to be able to hush the smoke detector. So if it goes off, send a signal to it to say, yes, I got it, shut up. Stop trying to blow my eardrums. So those are the different types of interactions that you can have with the smoke detector. So that's the reason that this has its own thing. There are subtleties to it. It might seem like just you would connect a smoke detector to a switch input, but if you've got the ability to do remote test and remote hush, then this gives you the extra. Oh, Dodgy says good morning, just woke up. Good morning, Dodgy. And Johnny is here too. Good morning, Johnny. Although I don't think it's morning for you, is it? Yes. Trady says, I can see this being a good selling point for people to integrate into a new home, even retrofit them. Yeah, well, the thing is that over the last couple of years, Ben has been building his dream house, and a huge amount of OXRS exists because Ben is building his house. That's what it comes down to. And so he's in this situation where he needed smoke detectors, both because they are a good idea and because they are legally required. So he wanted his smoke detectors integrated, so he did all the firmware for the integration of smoke detectors. So yeah, and now we have smoke detectors support in OXRS. Yeah, his house is being, in fact I showed a picture of his rack last week, I think it was. His new build house, which he's been working on, is being built from scratch all around OXRS. The light switches and all of, no, actually maybe not light switches, or is he using light switches? I can't remember. He's using a combination of different things, but yeah, all of this sort of stuff is being built into it. Peter says, Ben the builder, can he build it? Yes, he can. Right, smoke detector, touch panel, ESP32. This we looked at with Austin on the stream a few weeks ago, and what I'm interested to check is what has changed, because there's been a lot of development on the touchscreen stuff, and let's find, where is the repo, touch panel firmware on GitHub. Here we go. Okay. What's changed? Where is the date on this? latest releases. No, let's just go to code. Last week, moved scripts. Last week, scripts changed. That was just a move 2 weeks ago. Updated libdeps. Let's find out what has been going on in the touchscreen. So Moin has been doing all of this work. Ah, Frank says using switches and KNX outputs. Yeah. Yes. Dodgy said, does Ben have the same laws as us regarding the connection? For context, Dodgy is here in Australia, just like me. So when he says same laws as us, he means Australia. And Ben is in New Zealand. And the two have very, very similar regulations. They have... we share standards, pretty much. I don't think they are all 100% exactly the same, but when you see a standard printed on something, like on an electrical product, it'll typically say AS/NZ blah, like in a number, and that's because, or is it AS/NZS, because the standards are harmonized between Australia and New Zealand. Like when you build a product, if it meets Australian standards, it'll meet New Zealand standards and vice versa, because they're basically the same. But there are some differences around who is allowed to do the work. And in Australia, yeah, I won't go down this rabbit hole too much, but basically I think New Zealand gives you more leeway in terms of who is allowed to do the things, like making actual connections of electrical devices. You can do more in New Zealand than you can in Australia. In Australia, you're not allowed to touch anything unless you're a licensed electrician. In New Zealand, I'm pretty sure that you are allowed to do your own terminations and things. But I may be wrong about that, but I think that's the case. Yeah, Celtic says, can't NZ do wiring in homes? Yeah. Yes. Don has said AS/NZS 3000. Yeah, that's the sort of format that we see. So the standards in terms of what is done and how products are designed is essentially the same. But in terms of who is allowed to do it, that is different. And New Zealand has a much more sensible approach, in my opinion. Yes. Don says, a homeowner can replace like for like and have electricians certify homeowners' work. Yeah, cool. Which seems quite sensible. Certainly a lot more sensible than Australia's super restrictive. Michael, this is an interesting question. I'd like to see a comparison table between Australia and New Zealand regarding home electrocutions. Yeah, I did see stats on this a couple of years ago. When I went off on that whole rant about Australia being a bad place for DIY home automation, I went down the rabbit hole of looking at things like stats for deaths related to electrocution in different countries around the world. And I can't remember, is the short thing. But I think New Zealand is not any worse than Australia. I think it's basically the same, may even be better statistically, although the number of people, like compared to the US, for example, which has a much bigger population, statistically both Australia and New Zealand don't have enough it sounds so strange to say, we don't have enough people dying from electrocution to have like a good statistical basis with with low variance and all of that sort of thing. Like the, what is it, the p-value, whatever the statisticians base it on. Yeah. Right. Andrew pointed out, so AS3000 is the standard, but the Act is what makes it an offence. Okay, that's an interesting distinction. So there is the standard that you have to work to, and then there is the Act, which I guess is an Act of Parliament, which sets the offence for breaching the standards or something. Yep. Right. Yeah. Michael says, last person I heard of dying from electrocution was a Sparky working on a pie oven. Yeah. Yeah. I think the number of deaths from electrocution is so low in both Australia and New Zealand that, you know, it's one of these things where one person dies by electrocution and it skews the stats for the year. It's, yeah. It's down in the noise sort of thing. Okay. Tassie says, lol, they're dangling squirrels in front of you. Yeah. All right, so OXRS. We were looking at this. So Moin has done a whole lot of updates. What is this? Merge request. Collect extra scripts in separate. So that's a move thing. That's restructuring the repo thing. Fix debug extra.py for PIO. Ignore external level updates when using up and down buttons. So this is, yeah, it is being quite active. 3 weeks ago, prepare for web flasher. New API for button up down level. This is, if you just look at the dates on these commits, Moin has been superhuman. Look at this. April 15, 15, 15, 15, 16, 16, 16, 16, 17, 28, and then it just says last month, 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, last week. All these commits. It's just ongoing configurable screen layout. So this was from back in March. So not that long ago. Configurable screen layout, that would have been before I showed the touchscreen on the stream with Austin. Implemented new UX for level up and down, improved contrast for sublabel, lighter tile background. Yeah, I don't know if there was if there is anything specific that OXRS people want me to talk about in relation to any of this, like the touch panel. Let's go back to here. How it work text goes here. Awesome. Tile styles. Button level up. Yeah, I still have mine sitting right here. If I put that on there, in fact, there's probably even dust on it. There's dust on it. So this is the one that Austin sent me. There's his 3D printed cover. There is a 3D printed base. There is Austin's Ethernet interface with power over Ethernet and the voltage regulator down there that you can see. There's the PoE module. There's the voltage regulator. There's the Ethernet connection. There is the WISNet chip down there for the Ethernet interface. And then I've just got the WT32 CO1, I think it is, ESP32 touchscreen with dust attached to the top of it. So this is what I want to mount on the wall. It's one of those things where this has been sitting on my bench right here next to me within reach for several weeks now, basically since Austin sent it to me and I showed it on that live stream. And it needs to be mounted on the wall just over there. I need to get off my butt and do it. It really wouldn't take that long. And then I could put some of these tiles on it for controlling lights around the place. Speakers, oh yeah, media playback, indicator. Yeah, I should do it. I need to do it. Zero Harry says, sorry late comment, Aurora Tech have a nice review showing capabilities of the Bamboo Lab P1P printer. Cool. I'm going to, where are we? Bamboo. I know this is getting back to what we were talking about later. Oh, talking about earlier, Aurora Tech. But thanks for that, Zero. Aurora Tech. I'm just going to stick this for future reference because I will totally forget it unless I put this in a tab and leave it there. Here we go. Bamboo Lab. Is it a video or is it a... Yes, it's a video. Oh, okay. There we go. All right. So this is the... Where are we? There. This is the video that is the review of the Bamboo Lab P1P. I'm going to leave that and check it out later. Thanks, Zero, for the reference. Touch panel. I don't. So there was the comment. Nice house. Is that Ben's? Dodgy said. I don't think it is. I think this. I may be wrong, but I think this might be a stock footage thing, like a stock photo type thing. But you're right. It is a nice house. That looks very nice. Where are we? Libraries. So, is there anything in particular that OXRS people think I should point out that's in here? MQTT library. So there we've got the library. Sensor library. What is that one? Oh, that's stemmer sensors. Oh yeah, this one's been around for a little while. I thought this one might be something new, but it's not. This is one that I've seen before. Okay. Now, I'll just mention this briefly. The point of these libraries is, if we look at the firmware, say state monitor ESP32 for making a light switch controller, there are certain things that it needs to do. It needs to connect to MQTT. It needs to expose an API for configuration, and it needs some UI stuff, probably, whatever. I need to stretch. There are things that it does that are not specific to it being a state monitor. Those same functions are also required for the state controller, they're required for the state I/O, required for smoke detectors. So rather than implement that same code over and over again, it's been abstracted out. And here we've got the MQTT library, the API library, LCD and I/O handler library for the ESP32. And the ESP sensor library. And what that allows is changes to things like the MQTT code or updates to the API to be done in one place, and then all of these firmwares benefit from it. So if you are wanting to get into writing firmware or doing something for OXRS firmware, these libraries are your friends, and you'll see them being used in these various firmware options, so that they don't have to re-implement all of this functionality. And it makes the individual firmware easier to maintain and... thanks Aaron. Yeah, it makes the firmware easier to develop and to maintain, because a lot of that foundational work is right here. It's taken care of in these libraries. So if you wanted to develop firmware for other functions or different devices, you don't have to do 100% of the work yourself. You can have a look at what's been done in these firmware options and rely on these underlying libraries to save you a whole lot of time and headaches. So that is really cool. I like the way that's been modularized out like that. So Aaron, welcome. So Aaron said, onboard has been made easier with the new web flasher tool. Yeah. Web flasher tool. Where do I find the info about that? Where is this? Guides, getting started. Nope, not there. where do I find the info about the web flasher tool? Add-ons. I don't know. Where is it? I might just have to look in GitHub. Oh, flash.oxrs.io. Flash.oxrs.io. Select the firmware version you wish to flash to your device. Let's go. IO touch panel version. Now, to do this, I am going to need to, I would need to plug in a device by USB. Yeah, no docs yet, but I'm going to do this. I'm just pulling out the touch panel. Can I just power off this off USB? Yes, I'm pretty sure I can. I'm going to grab myself my handy dandy USB thing on an extension lead. Where is the USB? Now this already has firmware on it because we were messing around with it on a previous stream. If I plug it in, it's started up, it's come up with the OXRS logo. Here we go, and it's booting, and it will come up with the tiles that we configured. It should be, oh no, it won't connect at the moment because I don't have Ethernet plugged in. And this is not using Wi-Fi at the moment. So it's screen one. Yeah, it's failing to connect to MQTT and do all that stuff. I could plug in Ethernet. No, that's not the point right now. What I want to do is just show this firmware flashing thing. All right, so I have this device plugged in. I'm just going to put it down and come back to this view. So we've got OXRS IO touch panel, ESP32 firmware. That is the one that I want because that's the firmware for the touch panel. And then we've got some options. All right, so we can do, in the version 2.2.0, we can do it for the 86V with Wi-Fi in the S3, or there is the WT32 with Ethernet, ESP32, I think that's the one I want, or maybe plus Wi-Fi. Then there's a WT32 plus Wi-Fi, oh that's with the S3 version, and there is the WT32 Wi-Fi, yeah maybe I'll use this one so I don't have to plug it in. Okay, so there are some different variants here. Let's just pick this one, so I'll see if I can get it on using Wi-Fi. And Aaron says, this is for initial setup, so we'll wipe credentials, etc. After initial flashing, you would use the admin UI or API to update the device's firmware. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's just... Peter said, if it can't be flashed from a bash script using bootp and curl, I don't want to know. All right, connect. Is it going to give me options? Yes, there it is, CP2104. That is the one that we want to connect. So now we are connecting to the device, install. Is that line wrapping? Yeah, logs and console, all of that. So it's really only two options. This is one very long command. Install that firmware. All right, that is what I want to do. Do you want to erase the device before installing? All data on the device will be lost. I'm going to say yes, just so that it's like a totally clean experience here. And next. Do you want to remove, do you want to install? All data will be, so it's a final, are you sure, check before you pull the trigger. Okay, install. Preparing installation. And I need a view where the I've got the top-down camera and the screen visible at the same time. At the moment you can't see. Just trying to get the angle so that the light, there we go. So the light, the glare is not on the screen and you can potentially see it as it comes up. Where are we? Oh, so following on from Aaron's explanation, Eventually, when the OXRS admin system is available, which is the Unify style admin system, everything will be configured, set up and maintained from there. Yeah. Oh, we have progress. It says 23%, 25%. Keep this page visible to prevent slowdown. So this is a really, really slick way of onboarding devices. So as you saw, I plugged this device in. I went to flash.oxrs.io and select the firmware that I want, click connect, and it is doing it all. Now there was a question earlier, who was it? Scott asked, Chrome or Edge only is the question. And I don't know. I'm using Chrome. I'm not sure what else would work with it, or what would not work is more to the issue, more to the point. I don't know if it would work on Safari or what's the name of the other Windows browser that has been purged from my mind before Edge. Scott says it shows a message in Brave. Oh yeah, oh look, we've got a logo. It says OXRS. And it says installation complete with party popping stuff. All right, next. Logs and console. Let's see what that does. Clicking into logs, download logs, reset device. I'm just going to click reset device to see what happens. There we go. So it's reset and it says auto connect, no Wi-Fi saved, skipping, auto connect failed because it doesn't have anything to connect to. Start AP with SSID and it's telling me that it's OXRS Wi-Fi. It's given me the IP address. Starting web portal. So right now it is running its own access point, and I wonder if I can type commands in here. I don't know. But that is super, super cool. So Aaron, thank you very much for, for pointing me to this. So that is a great onboarding experience. So getting a device running with any of the firmware that is available. I'm just going to click on back out of here. And in fact, I'm going to exit out of there. I'm just going to come back to this starting page. So the options that are available at the moment are these four: the I/O touch panel, the state monitor, state controller, and state I/O. And and this could be expanded over time. So this is something that Aaron has been working on putting together, and it's it's a very useful tool. So what you can excuse me. So coming back into here, where was it? Firmware. We've got, as you can see, there are 7 different firmware options in here, and in here there are 4. But these are the important ones that most people are going to be using, particularly at the moment. People are playing around with the touch panel, and these other 3 are for the rack mount devices. But over time, the other firmware can be added to this, and you'd be able to flash any of the released firmware. Yeah, so cool. All right, now, where's my phone? There is my phone. I'm going to just do some things here that while you can't see it, just in case. OXRS Wi-Fi, I'm going to connect, and then once I got past this point, I'm going to stick it on the yeah, where's the browser? I'll stick it under the camera so you can see. Okay. 192.168.4.1. Here we go. Yeah, so this is the next step of the onboarding process. So the sequence so far has been plug in the device, go to flash.oxrs.io, select the firmware and the version, click flash. Acknowledge a couple of times and you're done. It's flashed. then in this particular case, because I selected the Wi-Fi firmware, it has started its own access point. I've now connected to the device. So this is now connected to the Wi-Fi being broadcast by the touchscreen. You can see the IP address 192.168.4.1, and then from here we can configure it. So we can have a look at the info of whatever is. Did that work? I'm not even sure. I'm looking at this through the camera, so I'm not sure if I'm clicking things properly. There we go. So uptime 3 minutes 42 seconds, and you can tell that I need a drink. You can hear it in my voice. Flash size, so it's got a whole bunch of information about it there. And we'll go back and configure Wi-Fi, and you can see it's already detected a couple of networks here. I'm going to stick it on Superhouse, and I'm going to take this away and type where you can't see what I'm typing. And by doing this, here we go. I'll just put it back here and click on Save. So it is now storing the Wi-Fi credentials for my office network, and this will now be in the process of connecting. In fact, let's get this over here. Hey, Peter. Anyway, I should move that out of the way. In fact, the fact that Peter is messaging me makes me wonder if there is something going on. No? It's just Peter messaging me. Okay. Hopefully the stream is still working. Yeah, Aaron says all OXRS firmware will be available soon. Yeah, so I wasn't saying that as a criticism at all. This is amazing. I was just pointing out the capabilities that this opens up, and how in future you'll be able to onboard devices and flash them really easily, no matter what the device is. So what have we got here? I can't read it while it's over there. Oh, MQTT. Okay, so I need to set some MQTT settings. Settings. Anyway, I'm not going to go into this now, because once you got to this point, it's straightforward. It's just enter your, connect to your MQTT broker, and away you go. Or if it had been an Ethernet device, then it could be configured using the OXRS UI. So the various components of this are coming together really nicely. There's sorry, just seeing Peter's comments again. Okay, so different stages of things. We now have firmware to go on devices, both end nodes and controllers, things like light switch controller. We have the web flasher, exhibit A. Let's see, we got exhibit A. We have all of these cool bits of, all these cool firmware options. Exhibit B, the OXRS web flasher that allows you to put that firmware onto the target device. And then Exhibit C, which I don't know, where is it? I'd have it somewhere, is the web UI. So web UI, is that hosted somewhere else? Aaron, I can't remember. Yeah, so Aaron pointed out it's now admin UI tool to add MQTT credentials and configure the screen. Yeah. So where, I've got a local copy of that somewhere. I can't even remember where. It is, oh, there we go. I'm going to open that. Okay, so yes, Exhibit C is the web UI, and what IP was it given? Let me have a look. .234. Cool. So the device we want to talk to is 102.168.1.234. And let's just view system just to see that we're talking to it. There you go. This is the information coming off the touchscreen. We now have the admin interface talking to it, so we could do something like set up MQTT. Let's select that. It's not currently connected. I could put in all my broker details and configure it. I won't actually do that yet because I don't need to. Edit config. What options does it have? All the color options and things for the screen. Home screen timeout. Lock panel timeout. Send command, update firmware. So you could do a firmware update from here if you wanted to. You could choose the file and then upload it for managing updates. And once it's connected to MQTT, then it can do all of the things that that we were showing on the stream previously with Austin, where we could load tiles onto it and have buttons to do different things. So those three exhibits that I've just shown you are foundational pieces of software for the overall OXRS system that is coming together in such a nice way. Firmware on devices, a way to put the firmware on the devices, and then a way to manage the devices, set their configurations and options and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, this is really, really nice. And over time, this is going to become more integrated. So things like being able to manage multiple devices and stuff will all happen in here. Yes, Peter is calling lunchtime. Yeah, Aaron said, Moyne and Ben have really been the driving force behind the progress so far, so big thanks to them. Yeah, absolutely. And I did some shout outs to them earlier, before you came on, I think, Aaron. Yeah, they definitely deserve all the kudos. So, and you as well. Don't downplay what you do. All right, now. Brett said, really cool. I've recently seen similar web flashes for WLED and ESP Home. One or both also ask you for your Wi-Fi, SSID and credentials and configure them so you don't have to do the device AP thing. Yeah, that's a nice little shortcut too, being able to do that directly. Oh, Peter said, did John answer your question, Bob? What was Bob's question? Where is Bob's question? Scrolling back, where is Bob? Where's Tassie Bob's question? I'm scrolling back. Where? You might have to ask it again, Tassie. Tassie? Where is this question? I'm missing it. Yes. Was the thing about last week's stream. What was... Oh, right. Okay. This will be brief, I promise. This is the follow-up about the lights. So I showed the down lights that I'd been playing around with and had Tasmoda running on. And the question of if I got my hands on 6,000 of those Tasmoda capable LED downlights, would people want them? And I'm no longer getting any responses from Delos. I sent an email to Delos, or to Travis, saying, yeah, could we come to some arrangement? Like, could I maybe take them on consignment? Because I can't afford to buy 6,000 LED downlights. And I haven't heard anything back. So I'm a little sad about that. But maybe he's just been busy or something, or waiting for some kind of response from his boss. I don't know, and hopefully I'll get some good news on that soon. So I have the box of 60 that he dropped off, which he said I could keep, and I had my son Tom, during the week, he sat here and reflashed them. So all 60 of those are now running Tasmoda. He got the process all down to a fine art of putting them into boot mode and into flashing mode, OTA mode, and sticking Tasmoda on them. So they are all Tasmatized now. And yeah, but I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use all 60 of those here. So I will, yeah, Stephen says, do a polite follow-up email. Yeah, I will. I was just going to wait a while. I'm not going to be too pushy about it. And I appreciate that he gave me the 60 lights that he did. That is a huge windfall in itself. So if that's all that comes out of it, I'm happy with that. But if an opportunity comes up where I can get more of them and then I can sell them and just make them available with Tasmoda on them, that would be fantastic. Peter says, time to go get ready for work. You're heading off to work now? Yeah. Mad Techie says, you worked it out, we got it from here. Yeah. Cool. Where are we? What was I thinking of as next? No, that's probably it. All right. I'm going to wrap up. I do actually have several other things that I was wanting to talk about. No, I'm not going to, because they're important enough that it's worth talking about for a while. Things that could open up more squirrel chasing, so I'll have to hold them over. But it's all right. Those are topics that can wait. It's topics related to the cleanish room and where I'm up to with it, which is very well advanced. The inside of the doors is now painted white, as discussed on the stream last week. The outside is going to be painted blue, but it is not yet. And I've started putting insulation in the walls so I can put plaster on the outside. I've done more painting and it's all coming together really nicely. But what I want to talk about is lighting and projectors throwing fun information on the floor and LEDs around the doors showing things. So there's going to be there are going to be some fun things to talk about for that, but that can be next week, and maybe I'll even have more to show. Scott says, "Quick, somebody order John a pizza." Simon said, "What shade of blue?" It's called Dulux Passionate Blue, which is like this really deep, intense blue. It's like an intense version of the Superhouse blue. Haven't seen Steve and Steph. All right, let's fix that. Now, as I'm wrapping up, let's get Steve and Steph on to do a little cameo appearance at the end of the stream. So here is Steve and Steph. Yes, they are still here. They're still alive. I haven't starved them to death yet. I am not a bad squirrel parent. I look after my squirrels. Yes, now do voices for them. Oh, cable tie. I need... Sorry, my brain just broke because I was just reading Imogen's comment about her brain being broken as well. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. And thank you very much for coming along. There'll be a lot more to talk about next week. Lots more cleanish room. I haven't mentioned it at all apart from that little thing at the end, but there's lots more cleanish room stuff to talk about. So that can be next week. And yeah, there are other things too. Anyway, I better not start talking about them. I'm going to go. Thank you for coming along. I hope you have a fantastic week this week and go and build something awesome. Bye.